my roses while I'm here. Rather be loved than feared. Don't really know what's up from here. Just speak up now and save your tears.
In today's video, we're going to be talking all about the similar philodendron that I have in my collection. If you're interested to see what plants that I have in my collection that are similar to one another, then stay tuned. Hey guys, I have 4 beautiful philodendron in my collection that are pretty much similar to one another, and I've grown to learn the difference between the 4 of them, so I like to share with you. First, I have a Florida Beauty, who is also beautiful. And then I have a reverted Florida Ghost, who has grown tremendously tall. Then I have a Philodendron pedatum, who has grown so much in such a short period of time. And also I have the bipennifolium, also known as the horsehead philodendron. With no further ado, let's just hop right into it, starting with the Philodendron pedatum. Now, I did a prior video on this pedatum and it was nowhere near this size. I believe it only came with 6 leaves, and she has been growing non-stop. As you can see, she's unfurling a leaf now and in the process of pushing out another leaf. So when I say she has been growing, she has been growing. And if you take a look, the leaves that she has been putting out has been very large in size. And as the leaves grow older, the darker they become. They become a shiny matte green, which I love. And if you notice, the leaves on this plant, they come at a very sharp point at all angles. And that is one of the ways I can distinguish it from the other philodendron. Not to mention that the leaves have like a pillowy effect to them. Also, this plant's stems have a dark reddish tint to them. And also, they're not really smooth. They have like a bumpier texture. I wouldn't say fuzzy. I think you get the drift. From my experience, this is a pretty easy to care plant. It's moderate to fast growing, and it's just amazing to look at. So if you don't have this plant in your collection, I advise you to get one. Now, typically, I love when my plants grow pretty fast, but because this plant grows large and takes up a lot of space, it has grown since the last clip and is almost touching my ceiling. So that is forcing me to do some maintenance. It's actually leaning forward and doesn't currently have the correct amount of support. So I think I'm going to go ahead and chop it down because I have no other place to place her for her to grow much taller than this. So I went ahead and took her down from the top of my Mills Bow wide cabinet and placed her on top of this stand here so you guys can get a better look and idea of what she's looking like. As you can see, she looks fairly healthy, but she needs more support. If I had more space, I would just give her a moss pole for support, but because I don't have the height space, I'm gonna have to cut her. Time for the maintenance. So if you look to your left, I have footage of where I'm going to cut. I'm just going to take one large cut and prop the remainder. That way I'm not putting my mother plant into complete shock with clipping her multiple times. So here I am adjusting the plant and getting ready to make my cut. And it's done. There's no turning back now. But even with the cut, she still looks nice and full and still will have plenty of space to grow. This is what I removed from her. I will be chopping this up and putting in stratum as you see here, and it makes a lovely display. Here you can see just how plump those leaves are, and the definition of the creasing of each leaf just gives it a beautiful effect. Once rooted, if I potted all these cuttings up together, it would make a nice full plant. As you all already know, I am not a professional. I'm just going by what I notice from my plants in my collection and how I can tell each plant apart from one another. Well, that is it for the pedatum. Next up, we have the Philodendron Florida Beauty. Now this plant is a beauty within itself. The difference between this plant and the pedatum is, of course, the variegation. That's obvious. And although it has almost the exact same shape as the pedatum, it is a little bit slender in size. And if you notice, the mid area of this plant has more of a spiky look to it. And I would say the lobes on this plant are a little bit slender and more defined. As far as growth, I want to say they grow at the same rate, although I've had the Florida Beauty a little bit shorter time than I've had the pedatum. I can't really fully tell you which one grows the fastest. I would have to keep this plant in my care a little bit longer to distinguish the difference in growth. And unlike the pedatum, the stem is more of a green color rather than red, and it is a lot more smoother without the little bumpy texture. Currently, I have my beauty growing in stratum because I wanted it to get a more healthier root system. And since the last clip you saw, it put out this newest leaf. And as you can see, it is a beauty. Now let's talk about the bipennifolium, also known as the Philodendron horsehead. This plant looks so much like the last two plants, doesn't it? And because it's at its immature state, I can't really show you how it would look as a mature leaf. Looking at it now, you would think it was just a normal Florida green. But as it will mature, it will become a shape to where it looks sort of like a horse head. And that's where it gets its name. If you ask me, it looks a lot similar to the next and last plant I'm going to share with you, which is my reverted Florida Ghost. Now this Florida Ghost has outgrown its space just like the pedatum you seen earlier. I've had this plant for some time now, and it's time to do some maintenance on this plant as well. Now here you can see that some of the leaves have fell off, and I'm going to cut it all the way back down to one single leaf. And you never know, with doing this, I just might get the variegation back, but I will just have to wait and see. So here I'm removing the portion that I just cut from the stake that I have here, and I'm going to do a chop and prop and put it in some stratum just like before. And this is the outcome, and it looks so beautiful. And as you can see, this plant is a lot brighter than the pedatum. It's a little lighter in color. It doesn't get as dark, but as you can see, it does look very much similar. As for the differences, you can see the stem is just a plain green, unlike the pedatum has a red stem. And the stems are also smooth. There's no bumpiness or furriness to the texture. There are veins in the leaves, but not as defined as the pedatum, in my opinion. When it comes to the new growth, that's where you're going to tell the complete difference from the other plants, because these leaves come in a bright neon green, or even white depending on the lighting. But in my case, my plant is reverted, so hopefully this chop gives me back my variegation. So as you can see, each one of these plants had something similar and also some differences. That is it for this video. Enjoy, peace, spread love, and be blessed. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe.
I know I make the effort, I try to make it better. This life shit isn't eternal, I never become a burden. I know just how that can feel, I know that it can get real. But my squad off for the turn up, we getting money to come up. They really all know the deal, one goal is just to stay real.